Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show today. We have a good one for you on the show. We are talking about the border wall. The GOP facing a pretty big crisis of whether or not to vote with Trump on this one. Take a look at Nancy Pelosi's Washington Post interview, more investigations, and is Donald Trump's budget dead on arrival in Congress? We will inform you of that as well. It's the wake up here on this Tuesday morning, starting off the weekend a little bit late, starting off this Tuesday a little bit later than normal, but it's okay. So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be back at this same time tomorrow, so just be ready for that. But if you listen to the wake up later in the day, then it will be not of any concern to you. But if you are listening for your morning commute, just be advised, we'll be back on the air at 7 a.m. tomorrow. So, all right. That settles that. So, as Republican senators up for re-election in 2020 face a major loyalty test to President Trump when they must decide later this week whether to embrace or reject the president's signature issue on the Senate floor. That's a pretty big decision. And normally the answer you think would be yes, right? That there'd be easy way to accept the signature issue, which is obviously the wall here on the Senate floor. Like, it's easy, but whether to support Trump's wall by backing his emergency declaration at the border is another thing. It's going to be a tough call for 22 Republicans who will be on the ballot along with the president next year. Trump has urged them to, quote, stay united. Some legal scholars are still debating the ramifications of the Senate disapproving the emergency resolution even without a veto-proof majority. The non-delegation doctrine has been thrown around, which prevents Congress from delegating legislative authority to the president, but for the most part, constitutional scholars like Yale professor of law and political science Akhil Redamar have deemed the vote to be judicially insignificant. Unless you get the president to sign this thing, or there is a veto override, the vote is symbolic. And you know what? That plays into what the vote really means. Mitch McConnell might whip up his caucus and react a whole differently if this vote mattered, except as a testing vote to get people on the record for the 2020 election, because this is going to be very, very important. And the question is, are there Republicans alive? Are there Republican voters alive who care more about following constitutional rights and procedures than they care about this wall? And I really don't know if there is, because that doesn't seem accurate based on what we've seen for the past many years, like the past 3 years, the past time that Trump has been in office here. So I think that we're going to have to see and find out what they try to do. If they try to stick with their principles, if that's actually what they believe. But again, we don't know what they could try to do. That is a loud buzzing there. I apologize for that. So of the GOP senators who may have faced competitive races in some swing states, Senators Susan Collins and Tom Tillis are both planning to buck the president by helping pass the disapproval resolution. Cory Gardner and Martha McSally of Colorado and Arizona have not announced how they plan to vote. David Perdue of Georgia said he's not planning on breaking with Trump on the emergency declaration or anything else for that matter. So it seems to be wrapped up pretty quickly. That David Perdue not going to challenge everything. Trump has boxed several of his Hill allies into lose-lose situations that could spark primary opponents and or a bruising campaign either way, even in solidly red areas. So John Conran of Texas may face a big-name Democrat as 2020 re-elect, like Joaquin Castro, who is still mulling a bid. Conran plans to support Trump in this battle, but building the wall in Texas could attract all kinds of controversy, including eminent domain battles against the government to retain control over private property. Saying, quote, it could be a career test for him because there's a lot of pressure on him from Texas, and he's already said he's going to support it. Democratic Texas lawmaker told the Washington Post, referring to the possibility of hundreds of eminent domain seizures. So that could be very rough. That's definitely going to be something we're going to have to keep a close eye on it here. Is this battle over eminent domain. So many people, they get their farms, they got everything in there, and they don't want it taken away, and it may just very well be taken away because that's what they voted for, and if they're happy with that, they're happy with that. If they're not, well, too bad. Lucky the rest of the country does not live where this wall is going to be. or just live by the border in general, really. It's a lot easier life, for sure. Mitch McConnell told reporters last week there could be changes to the disapproval resolution before it hits the floor, likely later this week. Mike Lee of Utah is spearheading legislation that would amend the 1976 law Trump has invoked for his national emergency, mandating that such declaration would automatically expire after 30 days unless both chambers of Congress vote to approve it. According to Erica Warner and Sungmoon Kim of the Washington Post, Andrew Boyle, a counsel with the Liberty and National Security Program at the President's Center for Justice, told us he hopes the next big push in Congress will be to overhaul the National Emergencies Act that Trump has enabled to begin with. That's from Washington Post there as well. There's a lot of scaremongering going on about this from both sides about a future president doing this, or more level-headed people on both sides to realize that this is no way to run a government. Well, I mean, someone's done it, and someone's already done it to great effect. Democrats have no choice to do it back as well, and that's just the way it works. All right. And now we turn to the Speaker of the House at the moment, Nancy Pelosi, where she just threw down a controversial marker in an interview with Joe Heim for the Washington Post magazine, saying, quote, she's not for impeaching Trump, even though the Speaker believes he is unfit to serve as president, saying, this is news. I haven't said this to any press person before, but since you asked, and I've been thinking about this, impeachment is so divisive that unless there's something compelling and overwhelming and bipartisan, I don't think we should go down that path that divides the country because he's just not worth it. Is Trump fit to be POTUS? Are we talking, this is another quote from her, are we talking ethically, intellectually, politically? What are we talking about here? All of the above. No. I don't think he is. I mean, ethically unfit, intellectually unfit, curiosity-wise unfit. No, I don't think he's fit to be president of the United States. I mean, yeah, I tend to agree with her on all these points. But, I mean, I would probably tend to open up the box of what you should go after him for impeaching. Like if he's committed any kind of reasonably impeachable offense, impeach him. But is it worth hyping up your base over this Mueller report that could be just very well could be a dud? And no, but if you have a reasonable investigation, then you have a reasonable investigation, and it's time to impeach. It's that simple. You cannot hold back on these things. But again, I think the Democrats have been doing this somewhat well so far. If you have something reasonable worth going after him for, then do it. And just walk the fine line. And it's going to be a tough line to walk, but if there's anyone going to walk that line, it could be some Democrats on the committee. If they really know that they can get him, you get him. But it's just you can't be too over anxious about it. I think it's the most important thing. So I don't think it's something we decide whether or not it's worth it. House Progressive Caucus co-chair Pramila Jayapal told the Mike DeBonis and Rachel Bate of the Washington Post, Politico, that would be, I believe. That's House Progressive Caucus co-chair Pramila Jayapal. If our investigation show a consistent pattern of abuse of power, obstruction of justice, then that seems to me that it would be impeachable. I mean, it's got a very big important point there. House Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler had previously said that about impeachment, the facts would be so stark, the deed so terrible, that you believe that once it's all laid out, then you will have an appreciable fraction of support from the general public. And I mean, there's obviously there's 30-40% of the country that's not going to move, but if you have 60% of support for impeachment, then I think you have to go for it, and you've got to take that opportunity when you can. I think that's very important. So, yeah, if the facts require us to initiate removing the president, we are obligated to do it. If the facts don't support it, we won't. David Cicilline, who sits on the Judiciary Committee and is a leadership member, told Politico, and I think he's definitely got a point there. And yeah, the important thing is not to hold back. If you 60 to 65% support is the number that 60 to 70% support is the number I'm looking for. If you got that level of support, not 55, but if you get 60% support over something that is clearly impeachable, then you got to go for it. But the question is, will we have it? And the answer is, I don't know. I really don't know. All right. Yeah. Now to the thing that could bring impeachment, investigations. The New York Attorney General's office issued subpoenas to Deutsche Bank and the Investors Bank on Monday for records relating to the financial to the financing of 4 major Trump Organization products in a failed effort to buy the Buffalo Bills National Football League in 2014, according to the New York Times' William Rashbaum and Danny Hakim. The inquiry opens a new front in the scrutiny of Deutsche Bank, one of the few lenders willing to do business with Donald Trump in recent years. The bank is already subject to 2 congressional investigations and was examined by New York banking regulators who took no action. Again, this is what they are reporting here. And so that seems to be, very interesting. What is going on with them? I think the fact that they were able to do that and the connections that they may have to Russia could be very, very important, kind of talking about this financial crime situation that is continually rearing its ugly head here. And I think that could be a very key line of inquiry on that front. The new inquiry by the Office of Attorney General Letitia James was prompted by congressional testimony last month of Michael Cohen, President Trump's former lawyer and fixer, the person briefed on the subpoenas. Cohen testified under oath that Trump had inflated his assets in financial statements, and Cohen provided copies of said statements he had submitted to Deutsche Bank. The focus of the inquiries is unclear, though it's part of a civil investigation and not a criminal one. The request of Deutsche Bank sought loan applications, mortgages, lines of credit, and other financing transactions in connection with the Trump International Hotel in Washington, the Trump National Doral outside Miami, and the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago. So that's where that investigation is going to go at the moment. All right, so here's what we have to do. We got to talk about this budget here. It's not great. Trump's budget may be dead on arrival, according to most Hill sources who said anything to say on this yesterday. But the president's proposal to slash Medicare has political implications ahead of 2020. This is something that they have and already will use against this guy, as they should. So here's the proposed changes in funding Trump's budget. Get 31%. These are all the negative cuts. Negative 31% to the EPA, 24% off state, 90% off transportation, 16% off HUD, housing and urban development, 15% off agriculture, 14% off the interior, 12% off health and human services, 12% off education, 11% off energy, 10% off labor, 2% off justice, 2% off NASA, and 2% off the Treasury. All the positive cuts: +5 defense, +7 Homeland Security, and +8 Veterans Affairs, +31% for the Environmental Protection Agency. Though, that's a big problem. And they're going to get some more money even for the wall. Yeah, this budget is likely dead on arrival. So yeah, this move flies blatantly in the face of Trump's 2016 campaign promise not to cut Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. Is a sharp contrast to the pitch from Democrats who are chanting Medicare for all. Toulouse Olnaripa and Sean Sullivan of the Washington Post call potential problems Trump might face with voters trying to exploit $845 billion in reductions for Medicaid and cut race, fraud, and abuse in the federal program that gives insurance to older Americans. An impact on seniors would be devastating, Chip Kahn, president of the Federation of American Hospitals, said in a statement to the Post. Hospitals are less and less able to cover the cost of Medicare for patients. It is no time to gut Medicare. Brian Schatz quote-tweeted a Trump tweet that says, "I was the first and only potential GOP candidate to say there would be no cuts to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid." And then he says, Huckabee copied me. This is a Trump tweet that he quoted from back in 2016. One party wants to expand Medicare and Medicaid, the other wants to cut them. It's that simple. That's the way it works. Chris Wilson said, on one hand, he's a GOP pollster. He said, you don't like handing the other side a potential campaign message at any point. The Democrats will inevitably try to make this into Trump wants to cut your Medicare argument. And boy, he's right. It's that simple. Finally, we turn to the people and the 2020 race. The DNC announced its 2020 convention will be held in Milwaukee. It was minutes before the GOP issued dire warnings, saying, quote, no city in America has stronger sense of socialism than Milwaukee. So that seems like a pretty cool city. Senator Mark Jefferson, director of the Wisconsin Republican Party, sent a statement. And with the rise of Bernie Sanders and the embrace of socialism by its newest leaders, the American left has come full circle. it's only fitting the Democrats would come to Milwaukee. So, yeah. Rice